So when I was doing my college search, I visited so many colleges. I visited about 7 schools, at least 7 schools, and I hadn't visited Clemson yet. You know, my parents wanted me to look at Clemson and say, oh, you might like the programs, whatever. And I was like, okay. But all colleges were essentially the same to me, and they always said, like, you know, when you go where you're supposed to be, you know, you'll feel like you're at home. And I was like, you know, that feeling doesn't exist. I've been to so many schools, and they all look the same. College is essentially the same. College is awesome, but it doesn't really matter. And so I didn't really think about visiting Clemson until, you know, my parents were like, you really need to go. It's close enough. You know, I'm from Charlotte, so it's close enough. Just take a day trip. So we got in the car, and we drove down here, and the moment I set foot here, I loved it. And, you know, I went home, and I was like, you know, I couldn't explain it. I was just like, I love Clemson. I love it so much. My mom was like, really? You love Clemson a lot? Because I knew my mother had studied at Clemson for a couple of years, but I didn't know much about it. And she said, you really like Clemson? You really want to go to Clemson? And I said, yeah. And she said, well, I have something to give you. And she gave me this tiger tail. And she said, Jenny, she said, you know, I was the first person in my family to go to college. And when my dad found out that I decided to go to Clemson, he went there and got this for me. And he brought it home. He said, you know, we're really proud of you. Go make us proud. And she actually ended up having to go back home to the community college after a couple of years because they couldn't afford it anymore. But, you know, Clemson always had a special place in her heart and in her family's history, actually. Anyone in her family, you know, distant cousins that eventually went to college, they all went to Clemson. There's not a South Carolina grad among them. But anyway, because I'm out of state, Clemson is, you know, $37 a year. So there's really only one way I was going to get to Clemson, and that was through a scholarship. And so I applied to Clemson, I got in, applied to the Honors College, I got in, and the Honors College has, you know, a really big scholarship program. However, they only take like 12 people, and I was like, oh man, it's going to be tough. So, you know, after I turned in my honors application, it was just a lot of waiting. And I remember getting a FedEx package, like mid-January. We opened it up, and my mom ripped it open together. And it said, congratulations, you are a finalist for the National Scholars Program, and we'd like to invite you to the finalist weekend in February. So, throughout the month between January and February, I was freaking out. I said, you know, this is my shot to get to Clemson. I really need this. I'm not getting there any other way. You know, I went to the weekend, and I had the time of my life. It was awesome. Met a lot of wonderful people. It was very stressful. And, you know, only had to wait about 2 weeks for the answer. And I remember getting it, I was in class when the letter came, and, like, the teacher, like, someone from the main office called my classroom, and then my teacher picked up the phone. She said, Jenny, you need to go to the office. And I was like, what for? You know, I'm in trouble. You know, what is it? And they were like, oh my gosh, like, this is it. And I was like, I don't understand why I'm going to the office. And so she called them back, and they said, okay, really just call your mom. And I was like, call my mom. So I called her, and she picked up the phone. She said, Jenny, you got it. And I was like, speechless. Absolutely speechless. And, I mean, I guess the rest is history.